Уважаемый зал, уважаемые зрители нашей трансляции, доброе утро.
Dear audience, viewers, good morning.
Друг друга аплодисментами.
Why are you still sleepy? Let's wake us up with a round of applause. Thank you. All right, we are all set to go to begin the second day of our Cyber Festival. And to begin, I would like to express my emotions. It's such a huge venue. Thank you, dear organizers. And this round of applause goes to you.
Итак, наша дискуссия.
All right.
Pentests, кибериспытания,
Bug bounty, pentests, cybertesting, verification, and all those names will be mentioned here. What else will invent? How to make sure that we're protected? Why did we come up with this name? It's all based on our experience and practice. Usually, heads of companies do not dig too deep, although they always ask, is it for sure that we're protected? How to make sure of it? How to check it? And today we'll be discussing different approaches to infrastructure protection and when and what is most efficient. And will be helped by top-notch professionals, those who have experienced all this, eating their dog food, and they'll be acting as a kind of white hacker, comparing the most popular ways to test the vulnerabilities of information system. Hopefully, it will be a friendly discussion. Julia, let's begin from the business part. The cybersecurity threats have been growing from year to year and from month to month. Everyone is talking about cybersecurity. What do you think about that? Good morning, everyone. Look, the volume of attacks has been growing, but on top of this, the quality of attacks has been improving. The business is facing more and more complex and sophisticated attacks, and we should know how to improve ourselves, not to act in an accelerated mode, to develop along with the attackers' development. Some 10 years ago, we would discuss in the first place that we have our attack groups, those chasing money. In the first place, they are banks and major companies, those deep pocket guys, and there are manufacturers trying to hack something just out of interest. Today, we see that each and every company is in the crosshair. We can see examples of small and medium businesses where a small company, for example, engaged in printing business cards. They were completely cracked and they went bankrupt. Any interaction with the outer world, any digital business is threatened. If you are doing some analog production, working manually based on the 19th century technology, you are safe enough. However, if you are trying to improve yourself based on the high level of digitalization, this immediately ends up in threats. I looked at the stats, and I see that 78% of the total attacks are targeted attacks. Could you explain this? Well, there can be mass attacks like those encryptors, when the purpose is not to crack a specific company, but there are also targeted attacks, when a target is selected and put in the crosshair. It does not mean that the malefactors spend a lot of time on investigating and chasing the victim. In real life, it's slightly different. In the darknet, there are a lot of exchanges selling and buying utilities to crack specific companies. And they are not only looking at specific vulnerabilities, they buy utilities against specific companies. It's the company that is of interest rather than the company's money as before. Wow, interesting. Does it mean that those malefactors would hit the victim until it's toast? They'll be looking for specific vulnerability. No, they'll be trying to carry out, execute something that may make the business non-viable. And they'll be doing that until the business ceases to exist, until they understand and see clearly that they can do it. So the trustworthiness of their efforts is still present here as a factor. And their objective is like the joke. You don't have to run faster than the polar bear. You have to run faster than the others. It's the same. You have to arrange your protection in such a way as to be ahead of the malefactor, of the intruder, to make sure that the pace of your malefactor, of your adversary, is lower than yours, giving you time to protect yourself. Any hacking experience makes problems for the IT units or the company's developers. The mere fact of breaking through into the company is not a matter of principle for the company. The matter of principle is leakage of customer data, is the violation of the company's business continuity for a period of 1 week. It may be stealing and eventually losing some significant amount rather than just a couple of bucks. And our objective is to arrange our protection in such a way that it makes it impossible for the hackers to implement such inadmissible events. I think that's enough, Julia. Thank you. From now on, we'll be discussing how business can protect itself. And we have here representatives of those businesses who manage to run faster than malefactors. Dmitry, what do you do in your company to identify cybersecurity events, and how do you protect yourselves? Look, it's a pretty tricky question, and it may take a lot of time to address it. I'll try to be brief. There are traditional ways, such as hardening or observing one's cyber hygiene, mainly by the IT department, which cyber hygiene habit should also be developed in the users. On the other hand, there may be proactive activities, such as putting in place automated IT protection systems capable of protecting the company. Virtual patching, which is becoming very popular because it's not always enough time to update the software, especially at the perimeter, which is particularly critical. The task is to get the evaluation of our protection level. It's not a matter of principle for the business if the perimeter is correct or not. The matter of principle is the probability of a risk. If we're not talking about a developer of information security tools, there is no such risk. But there are business risks, such as breaking business continuity or stealing money. And a cyber incident or a cyber attack is one of the factors that may end up in this, so it's important for the business to lower this risk. How can we make sure that the measures we're taking result in mitigating or neutralizing this risk? For this, we may need on-site research. And for this, we need to invite experts so that they come by and try to crack, acting like a real intruders, for us to see if we have noticed it or not, if we manage to respond or not, if they attain their end in order to implement the risk, fulfill the risk factor or not. This is the most important practical measure, and we have been exploiting it actively for a lot of time. What's good news?
Текущего мероприятия, во-первых, коллеги переформатировали стандарт.
I should say thank you. The hackers have rearranged the format of their attacks. They are acting in cahoot right now. If you think that today hackers are lone wolves, you are wrong. They are corporations. They have their own HR services. They have their accounting offices. They have very serious responsibility division and labor division. And the closer we are in simulating those who will be auditing us or testing our protection, the better our results will be. This must be everything. Okay, look, you come to your experts and they say we have pentests and we have lots of our other tools, and it would be great if the business could understand what each of those tools mean. Bug bounty is extremely popular today. Roman, do businesses find it trustworthy applying it? Alrighty. Let's look at the post of Russia with IT eyes rather than a user of the postal services. The Post of Russia is a huge organization distributed across Russia, employing tons of technologies and applications, all those living in an enterprise network. Speaking about bug bounty, of course, the Post of Russia would love to bring all its applications there in order to verify all of them, to make sure that they are effective and efficient, to identify the potential vulnerabilities. However, according to our discussion offline, if experts come together at a stage to reach an agreement as to the definitions, one person is missing here. What is bug bounty? In fact, we are outsourcing part of our live infrastructure or application or crowds of pentesters or lone wolf hackers or those who just like to dig into the source code to explore the product and yield some results. However, we have other colleagues who remind us every now and then about the regulations that need to be observed and complied with. And at this point, any organization of such a scale becomes a hostage of the situation. On the one hand, it may wish to find itself in the bug bounty world to complete all those pentests, possibly invite some foreign experts, international experts. But at this point, the regulator comes up to remind us, hey guys, look, the regulations are important, they matter, and without changing the legislation, without changing responsibilities and roles, without having such regulatory terms in bug bounty, we find ourselves in a situation when we're just in no position to do it physically. With all those new terms coming up, to what extent do we need to change the regulation to have it all introduced? Let's look at the regulation not only with the eyes who have to comply with it, but also of those who have to enforce it. the criminal code is to be observed. Speaking about it, we should care for the people who are involved in this process. We're in no position to allow that a person being legit be caught as a violator of the criminal code, to help the business to get more for less. As far as I know, Cyril, you have already exploited bug bounty, or what are your results? Hi, first of all, it's our continuous process rather than just one-time experience. We take part in. We have been taking part in the bug bounty experience for a long time. We're living of foreign peers. We started working with our domestic sites. Well, you are present in the web at all times, regardless of whether you're part of this process or not. And you always wish to do it in a legit mode, so allowing people to get legalized is important. I think that we should do that as fast as possible. I understand that there are legislative constraints, well, and if you don't have your own bug bounty program, it does not mean that there are no white hackers or black hackers trying to crack you. I believe that the result is really good. I'm in no position to say that the number of vulnerabilities that we have identified or the amount of money that we have lost is good. That's a good result. It's a good result that they were identified, but is it really good that we had those vulnerabilities? So judging based on those figures, judging on the quality based on those figures may be incorrect. Last year, we came out to those domestic sites. We paid quite a lot of money to the white hackers. And as my colleagues mentioned before me, it's critical to simulate as much as possible the attacker's activities in the framework of those bug bounty programs and penetration tests. It is great that we have managed to test our infrastructure together with those folks. And the result of such experience may be even more significant, almost one half of the amount that I mentioned, for both the number of vulnerabilities, which are 100 plus, and money-wise. Well, all those resources were spent on this. Therefore, I evaluate the outcome of our bug bounty efforts as very good. And based on the standoff results, we have been discussing really seriously the reallocation of our budget for the next year. The standoff guys, they write report, we analyze those reports, and we allocate money to spend on bug bounty. We spend more on bug bounty now rather than classical audit. Julia, can you add anything? Yes. To make it clearer, the bug bounty standoff site is the same as classical bug bounty, which is intended to look for atomic vulnerabilities. And here, the infrastructure testing, when payment is completed for identified vectors rather than specific vulnerabilities. And currently, teams are split up to work in parallel and to join their efforts to attain common goals. If previously it was mostly focused on websites and mobile apps, and the guys would specialize on those two things mostly. Today we have infrastructure guys on the platform, and they help us to improve ourselves. And we act here as both the organizer and the service company. And at the same time, we are the customer, verifying and testing our infrastructure. And it's long ago that we have found this format, I mean cybersecurity tests, for ourselves, and gradually we would increase the price. Today it's up to 60 million rubles, and we reached this amount gradually. I would hate to scare you with this amount. It does not mean that each one of you should announce this price tomorrow. However, as ourselves, we like the format. It works for us. When there is shortage of teams, trusted teams on the market, there are plenty of good guys. Some of them are freelancers today, and you're in no position to hire them.
А здесь у них интерес.
And the marketplace team, is there any interest here? Not the interest. When you're part of the same infrastructure with your employer, you stop seeing things. You need to improve yourself professionally. And there are two types of interest. There is financial interest. You want to earn money, but it's also about professional development. You see different systems, you see different technology solutions, and you can improve your skills with the same app. You don't trot sitting on the same stack at the same time. You wanted to add something. I'd like to engage in discussion, and I'd begin from Roman. We may be interesting to many, especially representatives of major companies, those who are trying to do something on their own, working some products, even developing products. Roman, how did you reach bug bounty? I'm asking from the perspective of trust. You were right to say that at daytime, your guy may be a white hacker, while at nighttime, the situation may change. Was it him or Kirill? Yes, Kirill. What triggered you? How do you work on this? How did you reach this level of trust? Or you just risk? Let this guy test us, test our protection, and let it be daytime, and at nighttime it will be different. Of course, the first premise is the one that I mentioned before. You are a part of bug bounty or not, it does not mean that you're fully protected. Anyone can still try to crack your perimeter. To us, the matter of trustworthiness in the framework of bug bounty is about trust to the site. And we're present at two major sites, and we trust the brand of the site at which we're present. This is number one. Number two, we have in our team a lot of guys who represent the community. I try to be a community representative myself. You mean the bug hunters community? Yes, of course. Of course, the level of success may vary. However, when you say that you have a bug bounty program, it may incentivize other people to take a shot at this, even those who have never done it before. Legit or non-legit. So I only see advantages here. And I don't see any trust problems. Speaking about ourselves, we have decided that for us it's a solution. You should not always or immediately publicly announce your bug bounty program. You can begin manually, starting from the experts you trust.
So there are two important things that I got, and probably it might be of interest for everyone. First of all, the valuable role of the site as a guarantee of legality. So, meaning that whatever is going to be done, it would be for the sake of something good. And the second story, probably, this is the methodology of accrediting the site, what checks and controls are installed, and representatives of such platforms, of such sites, probably would be good to ask such questions. It means that it offers an opportunity to talk to a regulator. If a person goes through a platform, through a site which has been checked and verified by the regulator using such methodology, then probably it should not be punished criminally. And the next logical step is that every person, before actually going to that site, should go to the business ombudsman. And we know that the crime begins with an intent. I don't want to divert to the legal discussion. That's a separate story, and that's great that Dmitry has raised that question. I do think that the organizers got that, and it would be reason enough in order to discuss that separately. So there are certain circles in which we may go, and for instance, and there are several communities. There are people who are just registered, people who told about themselves much more, therefore we can trust them more. So there are private programs and public ones. For public programs, we have registered 10,000 people, and certainly we cannot check 10,000 people. These are the people who may disclose everything to us and understand that we are going to hack them, and so let us pay for hacking rather than paying to the darknet. Those who are not prepared for such a format, there are some private programs in a more sparing mode, sparing even in terms of vulnerabilities that you submit and in terms of the traffic that would be dispatched to their infrastructure. So we may fine-tune something, and we may make sure that these benefits, that it brings advantages rather than disadvantages. And the quality experience of the peers may also increase the confidence. So this is kind of a word of mouth. Cyber trial. This is the most efficient protection against cyber threats. We're so confident about that. There were pentests and verifications, and in 2020 we have a bug bounty platform. So it means that the old school methods are not so efficient. We need something new. Well, let's have a look at that question from a different standpoint. The existing available methods of assessment that we discuss now, pentests, bug bounty, etc. I think these are the tools not of assessment, but rather the tools that would allow the companies, and first and foremost the people who are responsible for cybersecurity, information security, to check the available vulnerabilities in order to improve the protection. And all the requirements to those programs would be set by those services. They would obtain vulnerabilities, would improve the security mechanism. Certainly, having certain experience, certain access to information, you can make an indirect conclusion regarding whether this company is secured well, is protected well or not. But always, that would be a very subjective judgment. In order to make this judgment objective? You have to have clear-cut rules, how you check what serves as a criteria for the check, how you build the process, what requirements are set. Then you come up with a kind of a standard, and doing this job, you may answer the question to what extent the company is protected, is secured, and to those who are doing that assessment, to those who get the result, the beneficiaries and any other third party would agree with that, following the standard. We understand that the security as an integral part of digitalization is no longer a focus of the security service or of the company itself. It goes beyond the perimeter of the company because it concerns the clients, it concerns the partners, it concerns insurance companies, for instance, it concerns the regulator. And having an assessment or a judgment that all the stakeholders agree upon will help to take decisions. So, for instance, the client would decide to use this marketplace or another, use this bank or another bank. Now, through a chain of attacks, the number of hacks is going up. When your supplies, the service providers, are being used in order to hack the companies. And I do think that the number of such cases would grow. We are not living in a limited world. We are interacting with all of them. Any company, when it chooses the service provider or a partner, will have to understand whether it is safe and secure. Cyber trials, this is something that helps to make an independent judgment, make an independent assessment. Therefore, we have accumulated the whole experience, which is present in bug bounty, in pentest, in red teaming, an enormous work which was done by Positive Technologies when, for the first time, it launched the intolerable events bug bounty. This is when we assembled a group of advocates from different companies, and as a result, we came up with the first version of the methodology, supporting independent judgment or independent assessment. But one methodology alone is not enough. It has to be backed by the processes and factors that would confirm that the judgment was done following that methodology. You will need a tool that would guarantee to the third parties that cannot impact the judgment and the security, that this was really sound. So there has to be a cyber council incorporating people respected by the industry and whom their image, their reputation would serve as guarantee of the assessment and judgment meeting the industrial standards. Let me comment on that. Look, I've always said that we have to proceed from the task at hand, and what Vyacheslav is speaking about, this is a very important thing, in the sense that we have to show to the market, to our potential counterparties, to the clients, who I am. This is one of the objectives. Another objective is when we look inside, and we have to separate those tasks, cyber trials. This is, first of all, about methodology. When you can look at that, and then you may tell people about your security perimeter, you may tell the business who we are in terms of the cybersecurity, where our place there is, whether we are good. But you don't have to tell anyone beyond the perimeter of the company about that. You can get that objective assessment, and you may use that for the company itself in order to go on improving, to understand where you have to apply more efforts to improve your our protection and security. Certainly, we want to show to everyone how smart and how posh we are. But first and foremost, as the security officers, we have to secure and protect the company. And only then we can tell others about our measures. Let me add something. Very often when you talk to CISO, Chief Information Security Officers, we asked, does it make sense to do cyber trials? We understand that the system is not perfect, and we even realize what we have to do. But the very objective of cyber trials is not looking for standalone vulnerabilities, but rather to show how a critical damage may be done to the business. It doesn't matter whether you are prepared for that. The damage may be done tomorrow, and if you postpone, if you delay your research and trials until the moment that your system is perfect, the hackers may start an attack already. And if these events happen, then it would be about the survival of the business. Well, Kirill said that very right way. Cyber trials and bug bounty, this is one of the ways of ensuring continuity. You have to continuously be present on the platform. How you're being hacked, through what you are being hacked. It helps you to prioritize your efforts. For instance, you have old good scanning and the whole perimeter was scanned, and you may have 200-300 pages long report and you not know what to do. And bug bounty helps you to get those low-hanging fruits. This continuous process helps you to prioritize your efforts in order to understand what has to be fixed first and foremost. Let me pass the floor to Anton because he agrees, and secondly, his company said that it is joining bug bounty. Why? Well, probably let me start with saying why.
Сейчас вот в целом в рынке, прям происходит вот это вот направление на цифровизацию.
I see that the market is driven by digitalization.
Нет вот ожиданий каких-то SLA в формате 99,8.
There are no expectations as to 99.98 in terms of SLA. Digitalization of business requires sustainability. We speak a lot about cyber sustainability, but cyber sustainability, in my opinion, and for me, this is first of all about the IT sustainability. It means that the structure has to work continuously. If we compare these information security and IT threats, then, for instance, any error made by the administrator and the business is damaged. And there are cyber threats that may hack you, damage the business risk. But we act as an integrator. We act as information security integrator and as the IT integrator. And it means that we are seeking to ensure such sustainability. When we decided to join bug bounty, we actually thought that finally we will become shoemakers with shoes, because very often we say that integrators, they have a lot of expertise, they look nice, but only for the outside world, not for themselves. And the first thing that we addressed is to look deep inside, not to be a threat for our clients, to show on our own example that this is very much possible, and it can be done in a very short term. Well, for service providers, that's very important, especially now when the central bank tells the bankers to check the providers, and we see a lot of attacks being done through the supply chain. And we always speak about the cybersecurity or information security products. First of all, they don't have to be detrimental fundamental to the level of protection. Unfortunately, the market is full of products which are favored by hackers to make their attacks, and such openness, such transparency, this is the only way we can show what is inside to get some credibility from the clients. Because if just our words remain the words, we won't be trusted. Anton, you said that you're shoemakers with shoes. Some businesses try to get prepared for pin trials and bug bounty. Have you felt that you are now prepared for bug bounty, or just this was a must-have? It was a very ambitious goal.
Лично мы как шли на баг-баунти, да, и вот как хотим
Why we opted for bug bounty? We want to obtain some tranquility. We analyzed our infrastructure. We identified some key points that we have to take care of. As an IT integrator, our main value is about people and competences and database. But at the same time, we have common conventional processes, such as dealing with the clients, storing the client's data, etc. And we identified those key points, and then we looked at that from the standpoint of what has to be upgraded, what has to be improved structurally. For instance, we made some target design. And what was most critical for us, we can rebuild that very fast, doing some micro-segmentation, etc., etc. But most importantly is that this is something that we defeated with ourselves, and what we have to defeat outside, these are the processes. There are some IT processes. Some of the processes have been run, some are being forgotten, and there are some information security processes of the same nature. And there are certain processes. The user's one, this is about people. How can you damage the infrastructure? How can you steal money? In a conventional story, you can penetrate through the infrastructure, get to the system which has money, and do some actions, or you can charm the chief accountant and make him or her transfer money to your account. And the very idea of our transformation was to train the personnel about what they have to do. After all those measures, cyber trials will help us to get some objective picture and to check and verify whether we managed to do something about the people. We have some confidence about the technologies, but what about the people? Can they be charmed by the criminals? Well, charming a chief accountant, this is one step only, and we have to prevent such one step, one action, hackers' attacks. Well, charming a chief accountant, this is out of scope. Well, actually, it can be done through email, a corporate email. Why not hardening? Let me explain. The second rationale that we followed, that's a conventional as stories. So if you untie their hands, they would make sure that the business will not survive within that infrastructure. This is my attitude towards hardening. So it's good, but there has to be a reasonable flexibility and reasonable margins. You can make sure that the chief accountant would work through 18 jam servers. But will she be happy? No. Will she complain? She will. And what happens when the people who are the founding elements of the business, if they complain, they would go to the CEO. You have to find the right balance, and if we have a flat network with 1,000 HR, nothing would work. Anyway, any critical for business event has to happen at least in 2 steps, not in 1 step. And the system of 4 arms is nothing new. And actually, if you don't have it, so then the cyber trials will show who is right. Vyacheslav, cyber trials will superimpose pentests and others, where would coexist with pentests and red teaming, etc. If Julia comes to us and does a conventional red teaming and pentest without naming that as cyber trial, will it be worse than doing the cyber trial consulting with the cyber council? I think that we are comparing red and rectangle. These are apples and oranges. Well, there would be different types of checks and trials. We understand that the tasks might be different and the degree of preparedness might be different. And apart from technical things, there are some organizational ones. I look at that question from a different perspective. The objective of cyber trial follows some methodology that proceeds from our task and objective. We do that. Well, it has been driven by the motivated champions of our industry. That methodology has to proceed from the industry, not just from standalone legal entity. I call on everyone, I invite you, all those who get direct benefits from using such assessment to take part in that. We would improve our methodology and certainly going through a cycle of cyber trials, we would understand that we missed something probably, or we overlooked something. And in that sense, as an industry, if we can pool our efforts along with the consumers of those services and create a perfect assessment tool, a reasonable question would arise whether anything else is needed, because the assessment rests on the excellence of the researchers who are now involved in bug bounty and pin testing, red teaming. Well, I think that you are portraying an ideal world. This is my invitation to take part in that. Therefore, we published on our website a methodology, and you may join the group of people to further develop that methodology. Frankly speaking, and probably these are big words, but I do not believe in conventional pin tests. I think that now the conventional pin test is now being driven by the requirement of the regulator, because pin tests only provide an answer whether you can be hacked or not. 20 years ago, it was a relevant question, but now it is just a matter of time and money required in order to hack anyone. Business now has many more questions that it is prepared to ask. Well, actually, paying several million to get an answer that, yes, you can be hacked, doesn't make sense. Well, the market of assessment services is driven by the demand. And I understand that that demand is not homogeneous. There are leaders among the companies who are part of bug bounty and they have internal red teaming, and there are those who lag behind. The outdated methods, the methods which are being used by the regulators. This is so because the very idea of the regulator is to ensure some minimum set of measures. Bug bounty and red teaming, this is about working with the leaders. No, this is not like that. I would totally disagree with that. Now, when you have the requirements of the regulators, and hundreds of thousands of companies have to order pen tests, and it would generate lots of ill-face providers who would say, I promise that you will never be hacked. But if you join bug bounty, you pay for the result. And therefore, actually, there will be no case when the provider would say, give me money and I will tell you that you cannot be hacked. Well, this is very unlikely that tomorrow all the companies would join cyber trials. I think that those who are buying pen tests and who cannot afford top 3 executives here just have to take the whole budget allocated for pen tests and pay to the bug bounty.
Кирилл и Дмитрий ждут. Хотел сказать, что спрос может быть неоднородный, учитывая, какая у нас цифровая гигиена, уровень.
The demand may be inhomogeneous, bear in mind the level of digital literacy. No wonder they might be a part of business that needs an answer, yes or no, they can be hacked. Kirill, over to you. Well, first of all, I'd like to turn to the business owners who are watching us, who are present here. What the guys are saying doesn't matter. Doesn't mean that you have to join bug bounty, play that game, and do some cyber trials.
Ну, типа, вот вы проведете там сканирование на уязвимости, у вас будет
For instance, you do vulnerability scanning and you will get the 300 pages long report, and you will use that in order to prioritize. Now, this is the way they would spend a lot of money, waste a lot of money, and Yulia is closer to those who get the money, I'm closer to the one who pays the money. Well, this is beneficial for both parties. Well, what I mean to say is that initially we have to build some initial processes. This is what we started our discussion with. There are some conventional security processes, trials and bug bounty. This is a sign of maturity of the company, of the information security maturity in the company. First, we have to have 2 officers who would, for instance, build the vulnerability management process. Then you fix most obvious problems, and then next step would be about bug bounty and cyber trials. Otherwise, as I said, you would just spend a lot of money. And secondly, and again, this is a process of identifying the vulnerabilities. Cyber trials and bug bounty identify vulnerabilities, but if you don't have the processes to fix those vulnerabilities, then okay, you would be told that you can be hacked this way, but what do you do about that? Well, I said that the budget that in essence is allocated for pen tests as an alternative. You can be limited with that. Just take that budget and pay for the result, not just hiring a team from tier 20 and 30 expecting that they would at least try to do something. This is the alternative that I propose. And you can use some private program trying to build a process, for instance, when you see how vulnerabilities stack up, and you can at least try to fix those problems. With all the trust and confidence in the platform, bear in mind the scenario that you outlined, have no guarantees of the right prioritization. These would be low-hanging fruits, but if these fruits are numerous, there is a risk of subjectivization. So if we are overwhelmed, then they would freeze the whole process. Well, that's great that you at least can have that test drive, at least to give it a try. I now want to pass the floor to Dmitry. I now realize what the cyber trial is about. Roman, thank you so much for starting with the terminology. I think that we moved too far away from that. Why cyber trials are useful? Yulia, the very idea is to start with ourselves. There is some distortion in terms of responsibility and requirements. There are a lot of requirements to us as to business, in a sense that we have to be protected, we have to be secured. because we provide for continuity. We have to continuously generate electricity where we're selling goods to the people. This is another important thing. And our providers, our integrators, our partners, there are now requirements set to them. And these cyber trials have to be set for those guys. As Yulia has said, we are doing pentests, red teamings, following the instruction of the regulator, and the service providers are not doing anything. Once again, I'm speaking about the whole market. If those cyber trials are aimed against those people who are providing us with certain services, it would be much more efficient.
Это первый тезис. Второй тезис немножко троллинговый, если честно.
The second point may sound like a trolling. Julia reminded us of this great joke about the bear. When we see those weak companies that may not be as important, and they are those low-hanging fruits to be attacked first. Maybe they are useful in this sense. So, colleagues, I think that we should concentrate. It will be great to have a methodology for compliance check for suppliers. It will be useful for all. I'd like to add something. What and how cybersecurity testing could help businesses, especially those responsible for information security. Such cyber testing can work as a testing for you when you're accepting your cybersecurity team's work. You can say, before we sign your report, we will complete cybersecurity tests, and if your solution works and we're not cracked, we will pay you. I think this will be a significant step towards improving the cybersecurity. I suggest something different. The integrator, when providing a cybersecurity system turnkey, this price should be paid if there is a success. Well, it seems to me that we're moving slowly to technology stack certification centers for cybersecurity tests. And then the cybersecurity tests will become a measure for pentests for federal law compliance. I remember those Federal Law 44 contests. There are no limitations at all. Colleagues, we're running out of time. We only have 3 minutes left. I'm glad that we engaged in true discussion. To summarize, a few words. We have defined cybersecurity tests, and we have understood what it's about. Will there be something new coming from those cybersecurity guys? Of course there will. The industry is developing, the technology is developing. We always catch up. We are being correct, and we start inventing something to protect ourselves. And the other side, likewise. So let's get prepared for the next round, for the next year, to come up with new technology. Thank you very much for sharing your opinions with us, dear viewers and participants. Thank you very much for your attention. We're in the very beginning of the second day. It's only 11 o'clock. I wish you all the